Hey guys, it's Jelly. So, as a tax professional, there's a question that you can pretty much swear that you're going to get with every client that you talk to or prospective client that you talk to, and that's why use a tax professional when it's just cheaper for me to go do my taxes on my own using a software? A very smart question for someone who's maybe a little bit more concerned about paying more money for less value. But here's why I think that it's more valuable to get a professional in your corner in most situations. Some people's situation is just so bare bones and so simple that they can just do it themselves without having any tax code knowledge or experience. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And even for people who have semi simple situations. So, for example, I'm in a lot of different groups. I love being in groups, talking to different people and all that stuff. And it's the tax season. So, you see a lot of memes, a lot of funny just posts about taxes and tax refunds and all that good jazz. So there was one post that I saw that had a lot of different comments of people who are talking about they do their own taxes, and some people were complaining like, "Dang, I'm only getting back like a few $100s," or some people like, "Oh my God, I owe taxes," and they were just all laughing and talking about how to do your own taxes and stuff like that, which is cool. But I saw a lot of other comments from people who were like, "Yeah, I did my taxes," and one person commented and they were like, "Did you do your like?" They were said something like, "Yeah, I heard that you can get money back from going to school." And a whole bunch of people who had apparently had already done their taxes or were planning to do their taxes were completely unaware and were like asking could they do it from previous years they were in school because they never got it and they never did it and all this good jazz. So what does that tell you? That a lot of times, even if the software is super in depth, because I know previously when I used to do my own taxes that they would ask you questions about being a student, but the questions for someone who either thinks the question isn't applicable to them, or they misread it, or they just somehow neglect to fill out the questionnaire right or the software right, a lot of people can miss out. So for all of those people who were commenting, a lot of them had missed out or had planned or in the future we're going to miss out on what we call the American Opportunity Tax Credit, which is a tax credit for students, and it's a refundable tax credit. So what credits do is they take your tax liability and they reduce it, right? Compared to deductions, which reduce your taxable income. So for a refundable credit, once your tax liability is reduced to zero, a portion, and for the American Opportunity Tax Credit, is like 40% of the credit is refundable. So 40% of 2,500 is $1,000. So if you don't owe any taxes, a lot of times you can get up to that 40%, so up to that $1,000 refunded back to you. But if you're not aware of that, if you don't fill out your tax software correctly, if you don't make sure you get your 1098-T from your school, a lot of people will miss out on that. Another thing is, I have a client. Let's say, this client's name is Jan. Jan has two dependents. Jan also lives with the co-parent of these two dependents. The co-parents had agreed that Jan was going to claim the dependents. Why is that important? Well, having dependents is one portion that changes your filing status, but also you need to make sure that you pay more than half of the household expenses. So in Jan's case, she paid less than half of the household expenses. So instead of claiming what we call head of household, which has a higher standard deduction, she was only allowed to claim single. So what that standard deduction does is it's 12,200 for single people, and it deducts your taxable income by that standard deduction. So let's say Jan brought in $24,000. The standard deduction for her as a single parent who doesn't pay more than half of their household expenses would be $12,200. So that means their income of $24,000 will only be deducted by $12,200, leaving $11,800 or so left that's taxable. So why is that important? Well, if Jan was doing her own taxes, it would ask you, were you married? No. Do you have dependents? Yes. Do you pay more than half of your household expenses? No. Automatically is going to exclude her from being able to file as head of household. So head of household, rather than that single being 12,200 for a standard deduction, head of household offers a standard deduction of like $18,350, right? So she was never going to be eligible for being a head household because she doesn't pay more than half of the household expenses. But her co-parent is eligible. Why? Because one, they're unmarried. Two, they have qualifying dependents if the parents had agreed for them to hold the dependents. And three, they pay more than half of the household's expenses. So going through the software, both of them were gonna just be like, oh yeah, I pay single. He wasn't gonna claim any dependents, so it wasn't gonna allow him to claim head of household. she couldn't claim head of household because she didn't pay more than half of the household expenses. So both of them would have been going in and getting that $12,200 standard deduction. So let's say they both had an income of 24,000. So both of them would have been subtracting that $12,200 standard deduction. So both of them would have been having taxable income of $11,800, rather than one of them, her, because the only one is eligible for head of household is him. She could have did the standard deduction for single, and he could have took at least one of the dependents and claimed them and been eligible to do the head of household. So let's say her taxable income is still 11,800. Him, with that income of 24,000, his income would have been deducted by $18,350. So I can't do that math in my head, but it comes out to about 5,000 something of taxable income rather than 11,000 and something of taxable income. So depending on their situation and the other financial information, right off the bat, I know that their household can get more back in tax refunds or have a lower tax liability had they had someone that can talk them through their situation and the tax implications of who chooses to claim who, what their income is, and all that good jazz. So yeah, had they went through the just the tax software on her own, she would have went through, filed single, cool. They agreed that she was going to claim the dependents. There's no one to interpret that tax code for them and be in their corner to try to get their household and their family the most back for refunds, or just paying the less in taxes that they can if they use the tax code to their advantage. So I know that was a very long spiel, and I hope it makes sense. But I'm just saying that a lot of times, even with technology, and I'm very appreciative of technology, and I'm very attached to it. But there are still some cases where you need that human touch, and for something that has a lot of interpretation in it, and for something that is very complicated. I don't know if you've ever looked at the tax code, but it can be complicated. I think that a lot of us would benefit if we had somebody in our corner, a professional there, to have our back. So let's say, they were going to save how much ever on their tax preparation fees by doing it online. They lost out on a lot more, a lot, or possibly larger tax refund, or saving a lot more if they ended up owing taxes, saving a lot more than what they could have owned had they did it on their own. And they had me in their corner to look out for them and make sure that I run scenarios to make sure I find the best tax status for the both of them. So yeah, that's my little spiel, and I hope it makes sense. If you're interested in getting started to have a tax professional look at your taxes, you can DM me and I'll send you the link to get started. It's super simple process for me. So I DM you a link, you sign up, you wait to get a notification that says you have your tax client interview in your profile. You go fill it out, you snap pictures of your tax documents, take a selfie so I know it's really you and nobody's stealing your identity. You upload all your documents all with the click right through your phone, and then I'm looking at that. You have a human being looking at that who has studied the tax code and who is there in your corner to make sure that you pay as little taxes as you're eligible to pay and get refunded as much taxes as you should be getting. And it's as simple as that, and everything's done virtually. So if you're interested in that, DM me and I'll send you the link. I hope that you guys learned something today. If not, if anything, learn the difference between deductions, which reduce your taxable income, versus credits, which reduce your actual tax liability. That's my little lesson of the day, and I will see you next time. Have a good weekend.